Hey everybody, it's Andre Shirdan, and my guest today is Dr. Bilal Saib. Boy, sorry about that for botching that up.
That's all right.
Who most people know as Dr. B, and he's been practicing cosmetic and restorative dentistry in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, at Chapel Hill Advanced Dentistry for more than 20 years. I know him well as the host of over 100 plus episodes of the Passionate Dentist podcast, where you can find a couple episodes with me, and we'll post the link to that in the notes. But we also share not only a passion for dentistry, but you didn't know this, we're both passionate foodies. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. And honestly, when I came up with this idea for doing these interviews, one of the things I thought about is what format would I like it in? And I stole the idea from him because I love this idea of having questions that are very similar, so that we hear a perspective from all the people that we're going to interview during this series. So props to you, and thank you for being a guest, and thank you for letting me steal your idea, buddy.
Sure. Thanks for having me. You know, the funny thing is, though, if you look at my podcast, you'll notice about halfway through all the episodes, I stopped doing that format.
I know.
I started making more a conversation. But
I know.
But there's something really cool about having everybody answer the same questions, like you said. So you know, I actually stole that from, what was it, John Lee Dumas or something like that. I actually stole that idea.
Yeah.
From him. So you know, we're in the stealing business, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, what do they say? Stealing from one person is plagiarism. Stealing from everybody is research.
It is research. That's exactly right.
And honestly, you know, I've said this before, but you know, I'd love to know the best, or you know, the best pick books from every single president we've ever had, or the best quote from every single president we've ever had, something like that. That to me would be just, and again, that's kind of one of the things. The top 10 things is one of those buzzwords in YouTube that would get anybody to listen to it. The top 10 whatever, top 10 whatever of 2021, you know. So, but I'm glad we got a chance to catch up, because I am going to talk to you about a few questions, and sort of the theme of this series is going to be comparing yourself to who you are now and who you were before you hit a fork in the road. And I'm going to make that as broad as possible, because I want to talk about, you know, you're one of those dentists who has a really strong philosophy of care. And I get that in the way you talk about dentistry and what I see. I know that you do a lot of work outside the country. And I know that you at some point made a decision to be the dentist you are today. I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. But tell me about that.
Well, I mean, you know, I've been a dentist since 1995, and the thing I had to choose at one point is, you know, after I graduated, I did a few residencies, and then I left the country for a while. I lived in Russia for a little bit, and I worked for a corporation over there. And when I came back, when it was time to start my own practice here, I had to ask myself the question of what kind of a dentist am I going to be? You know, here I am all dressed up, and I could do implants, and I could do reconstructions, I could do cosmetics, because I went through a prosthodontics fellowship. But is that what I wanted? Because I was still general. So if I'm general, do I want to focus it, or do I want to become one of these mill dentists? And which is nothing wrong with that, but is that what I wanted? And I had to ask myself that question. And I chose to become kind of like a high-end niche kind of a dentist, and that's what I chose. That's you know, one of the forks in the road. You know, we come up with a lot of forks in our road in our lives, but that was the choice I made. And then, and this is going to sound a little weird, but when it was time for me to build my practice, I sabotaged myself, my future self, to make sure I'll never become a high volume dental practice. I literally designed my practice to be very small, where I cannot really expand it, The rooms are large. I cannot break them up into smaller rooms. Every single room has a door because a lot of cosmetic and reconstructive dentists want privacy. They don't like to be in bays. So I designed it that way so that in case in the future I decide to say, you know what, I can't make it, it's too difficult, I'm just going to become a Medicaid practice or a very heavy PPO-driven practice, I couldn't do it without leaving the premises. And guess who paid for the premises? I paid for the place. So in a way, I sabotaged myself to do that. I don't know if I answered your question, but that was...
No, that's great. No, that's great. There's a saying that, the greatest warriors burn their ships when they land at the land they're trying to conquer, because there's no way for them to come back.
That's kind of what I did. But that's because I know my personal self. I'm always very, very distracted by new shiny things or anything around me. I'm always distracted. The only way I can stay focused is when I throw myself in a hole and I have to figure out a way to dig my way out of it. It's the only way I can really stay focused. But that's just me, though.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you were saying that, and I think this is going to become a theme in this series is, every fork has multiple forks. It's almost like, the vascular system. When you're looking at it, because we hit different points in our life where our values change, our philosophies change, our the technology and dentistry changes, and that changes the way we do things. I mean, you think about, I remember the dentist I saw as a kid had belt-driven handpieces. I mean, that's how old I am.
I remember that.
Yeah, and thinking about the operatory has changed. The whole environment has changed. And, what we went through with AIDS changed the way we did dentistry. And what we are going through with COVID changes the way we're doing dentistry in some ways, So, it is good. It is multiple forks that we're going to hit. Here's a question that I, like I said, part of what I got from you and part of what I want to ask everybody is, what's the book that everyone should be reading and should have read and read and read and read? What's your sort of go-to book?
There's obviously, I've been reading a lot, but I tell you, the classic of 48 Laws of Power is what everybody should read at some point. It's really, it sets the stage for everything else in life, really. And so whether it's from politics, whether it's just understanding people, because dentistry is a people profession, really.
It is.
And I know it sounds really crazy, but if you want to get to know the person in front of you, all interaction at some level is a power grab at some level. And I don't mean to say this in a bad way. That's just the way it is. Even Gandhi was a master of doing things and using some of the rules of the 48 Laws of Power. He was a master of it, even though he was very peaceful and stuff. I mean, I get the fact that he had his issues, but it's old, it's classic. But when you read that book and you read like a textbook, by the way, it's literally like lifting a veil that's been sitting in front of your face your entire life that you didn't know you had. It's like people have, rosy colored glasses and stuff like that. It literally removes the glasses from your eyes and you start seeing things from what they are.
Yep.
That is really, that's the book that changed my life.
Awesome.
That's the book that changed it. That changed the direction of how I chose to do what I choose to do. It literally, it let me choose one side of the fork versus the other.
Yeah. And
it still helps me do it. And I still have to go back in there and sometimes reread some of those laws. Yeah. It's fascinating, is the way I say it. And so if you want to understand politics like you never understood before, read this book. If you just want to understand the corporate politics that the company you're in, read this book.
Yeah.
If you're part of a group of 5 doctors and you want to understand that there's actually, and you don't think there's politics going on, read this book. You will start seeing the politics.
Yeah.
The only last thing I want to add about this book is what I call, or what the book itself self-proclaimed, that it says it's an amoral book. And a lot of people mistake that for non-moral, rather than as an immoral.
Right.
It's not immoral, it's amoral. Amoral means it goes without morality, meaning you can take a brick has no morality to it. Money has no morality to it. It's what you do with the brick. You can bash someone's head open with it, or you can build a skyscraper with it.
Yeah. Or
money, you can give it to charity and help someone, or buy a gun and shoot someone. It's just, money has no morality to it, neither does a brick. So the book has no morality to it, meaning you can use it for good, you can use it for bad.
That's an awesome choice. So here's my next question for you. Yeah. So, and I think we share this passion for quotes. So give me one or two of your favorite quotes that you live by, or that that you hand out.
The best of all days is the day we have yet to live, and the best of all seas is the sea we have yet to sail. Is an old Arab proverb. And obviously it might seem simple, but it's almost like a daily, something you say every morning.
Yeah. And
the reason why you say that is you constantly looking forward and you keep moving, basically. To me, that's always the case. And no matter what life gives you, you never know what's going to happen. Just think of that next step, and always think about, look, the best of all days is the day we have yet to live.
Yeah. I tell people, if you find a quote that you can live by, a proverb quote to live by, you could almost put it on the front of your door going into your office, on the other side of the door going home at night, and it keeps you grounded. Because sometimes we need to decompress, and sometimes we need, I always say we need a safe word when we leave the office, so we can leave the office behind, and another safe word when we come back, because we're switching families, when we do that. So, well, that's good.
So another one is it actually came from the movie The Matrix. It's know thyself. Demet Nose, I think. So it's know thyself, and that's hugely impactful for me.
Yeah.
So because there's a lot of people out there who are so extroverted, which is great. Extroversion is great, but they're unable to see themselves from within themselves. So they only see the outside.
Yeah.
And how the outside creates a reaction in them, so they react emotionally to the outside world, as opposed to controlling oneself. So you need to know thyself to control thyself.
Yeah.
And that's been probably, those two are pretty much the only things that I live by, really.
And knowing yourself is honestly one of the easiest ways to know which side of the fork you want to take too.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And going back to that fork of how I chose my practice, I've worked in practices where I would see, 60 patients a day, doing one little check here and a little filling there and amalgam here, and throw this patient out in the chair, and just stuff like that. And I knew that is not my happy place. Yeah. That is not my happy place. So anyway, so that's because I knew myself. Well, but I'm an introvert, so.
Well, that's good. I'm okay with that, as long as if you know it, as long as you know it, right? Yeah. So here's some easy ones. Okay. What's the high-tech thing you can't live without, and why?
iPad. Or iPad, iPhone. I mean, I know this might sound crazy, but it might be as simple as that. But I mean, you might sit there and say, well, he's a dentist, he should be thinking about CAD CAM and 3D printing or whatever. But an iPhone, iPad, it's because, again, it's amoral. You can do whatever you want with it. Yeah. You can choose what you want. You can choose it, and it's a choice of mine. I mean, do I have Facebook on it? Yes, but I never get on the Facebook on my iPad. But I use it for all kinds of other stuff, especially at work and personal things, email. I don't know. It's just it is a beautiful, beautiful device, and it's again, because you can pretty much do anything. I read my books on it sometimes. Occasionally, I feel like having a paper book in my hand, but ultimately, you can't really beat an iPad because it'll do whatever you want it to do for you. And so,
Yeah.
no matter how high or low tech you want to be, it's there. It'll do it for you. So, yeah, I like my E40 CAD CAM. I love my 3D printing. That's high tech, but you know,
But you can live without those.
I can do beautiful dentistry without those. I've done it for decades,
Yeah.
and so when it comes to dentistry, and I'm going to focus on dentistry for just a second here. I've always said this, saying, give me a really, really good dentist with just below average old equipment any day over a below average crappy dentist with really, really good equipment.
Oh, yeah.
I will take an old-fashioned dentist with really good hands and really good morals any day with bad equipment, any day over a dentist that has high quality, very expensive equipment that doesn't do good dentistry. So
I have to agree with you 300%.
You know, technology is great, but it's the person using the technology that matters the most. So
I agree. So on that note, what's the low tech thing, no plug attached thing that you can't live without, and why?
All right, so I'm going to talk like a dentist now, okay? As much as I love using all my fancy stuff in my office, nothing gives me the warm fuzzies like a good old fashioned hand cast, hand waxed, hand cast gold onlays and inlays. Nothing gives me the warm fuzzies like those. Yep, I have the CAD CAM. I can do porcelain, zirconia. I can do Emax. I can do everything. But I still do good old fashioned gold on people all the time. That has to send. I still take the impression, send it off to lab, and when I seat that thing, if the lab tech is beautiful, those gold restorations look like they were painted on the teeth. But it has to be done. And nothing gives me the warm fuzz. I know I'm still doing the absolute best dentistry that I can to people. And so if you want to see something here really quick, I don't know if you can see my teeth.
Yeah, gold.
These have been in here since 2006, all of them. And they still look like the day they were put in. You can't say that about porcelains. You really can't. You really can't say that. And obviously, if somebody said, I want a gold right here, I might want to question their sanity, but I still do gold in the back. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Maybe some of your listeners might be saying, hey, what an old dinosaur. But I tell you, I put these against any porcelain restoration.
Yeah. And I'll tell you
that strength. So any day.
Full admission, I worked with a dentist in Maine years ago. It's got to be 25 years ago. As I was a consultant when I was consulting, and he did Tucker Standard Gold.
Yep.
And from that day on, all I could think about was replacing the composites and the amalgams that I had with gold. And so I'm with you 300%. I'm a believer. I just haven't done it yet. And I think if I ever have to have anything replaced, I'm headed to Maine, or maybe I'll come see you and get it done. So let's go back to the beginning of where we started, and let's talk about this. If you could go back to talk to Dr. B, who was at the beginning of that fork, and whisper in his ear something, what would that advice be?
So now, hold on. You got to tell me which year I need to go back to. If I go back,
whichever one you want to pick, whichever one you pick. Could be, don't bet on the Dodgers, or it could be anything. I'm not a baseball person, but it could be anything. Buy Apple stock.
Honestly, if I could go back, first of all, let me go back like 35 years, okay? When I was still a college student. If I could just go back there and just see myself, I would just pat myself on the back and say, hey, Bilal, you're doing good. doing good. Just stay the course. You're doing great. So you're gonna do fine. Just stay the course. And then if I go to dental school, I'd probably say the exact same thing. And then once I started my practice and I had picked the right fork instead of the left one, and I was struggling, I felt like I was drowning. I would have said, be patient. You got this. You're gonna do fine. Are you starting to see the trend here?
Yeah.
So it seems like I've always made the right choices for my need. I just needed somebody to tell me that, Bilal, you're doing good. Yeah. Somebody credible. And I guess no one's as credible as your future self. But Bilal, you're doing great. Just stay the course. You got good priorities. You're doing the right thing. You're doing good. You're doing good. Stay where you are. You know what I mean? Stay where just keep walking. You know what I mean? Is what I always say.
So I didn't give you this question beforehand because I want to set you up for this last question I'm going to ask. Deer in the headlights, but this is an easy one. So where you are today, do you think you got here through hard work or through luck? I'll let you define that the way you want it.
So the truth is, it's definitely both.
Yeah.
It's definitely both in my case, and so because it's not. Yeah, I worked hard, but I'm lucky to have the parents that I have because we can't pick our parents,
right?
So I'm very lucky in so far as that. I'm lucky that somehow in college that whole drug thing escaped me. I never got into drugs at all for some reason. Somehow, maybe I was in that weird generation where I never got into drugs. And I have a very addictive personality. I would have been a horrible drug addict if I wasn't into drugs because I know myself.
Yeah.
So that's luck. And so, yeah, I make hard choices every day. As a dentist, we do it every day, 50 times an hour, if not more. And so, but there has to be an element of luck. And for that, I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful. I've had it good. I mean, I'm at the beach. I should turn this camera around. You should see my view. Oh, here it is.
Oh, that's it.
And those are my feet. Yes. See?
And that's what it's all about. That is what it's really all about.
Yeah, but that's also luck insofar as, once I got remarried, I'm very lucky that I have a very, very smart and very educated wife who's very, very strong. And together we can afford this. Otherwise, I couldn't afford this.
Yeah.
I really couldn't, And so that's luck. That's luck. There's luck in there. And so when people say, "Oh no, I just earned this 100% all by myself," I was like, yes and no.
Yeah,
there's some luck in it. So.
I agree. It's a combination of hard work and luck, and
yeah.
it's the fork that you take.
But you know what? Luck favors the prepared. I've always believed in that little quote, also. And so, if you're prepared and you make the right choices, I think luck favors it. Luck favors you. So, call me a romantic. I don't know. That's just great.
Well, I'm so glad you got a chance to do this with me, and you were my podcast hero, so I had to get you to be part of this.
I appreciate you saying that.
So thanks a lot, man.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this. It's kind of brought back some good memories of podcasting. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Hunter.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Take care.